Hello, this is Alex Orr speaking. And this is a meeting of the Conservation Commission's Subcommittee on Land Use, and we have been going through the rules and regulations for nearly 2 years. And we're coming to the end of our process. And today we have an agenda which starts off with talking about a part of the rules and regulations which the commission did not approve yet. And then we have forest management and beavers yet to go. So our term is expiring at the end of this month. And unless we can get a reprieve for a couple of more meetings to cover forestry and beavers and get this issue off our desk. So present we have Aaron Jock, Bruce Stedman, Michelle Laub, and I'm Alex Orr. And we're expecting Dave Zomack, Amherst staff. I see my office. Okay, I just got a text from Aaron. That must be Aaron. Are you there?
Yes, I'm just eating my lunch.
Okay. So unless people have any questions, I'll ask Aaron to bring up the document that I just sent out and we can go through it. I think this will take, if we're going to go for just an hour, I think this will probably take most of that hour, and we'll just put the other items on the next agenda. And Bruce, you saw the most recent version of that Excel file on hunting seasons? You're on mute, Bruce. Can you hear me, Bruce?
I didn't see it.
Okay, yeah. Last time we met, Michelle asked me to add migratory birds, which I did.
And before we go any further, can I put something on the record?
Yeah, sure.
So I just want to acknowledge and honor the incredible amount of work that Alex has done as the chair, drafting all these things, forcing us to get serious, et cetera. And I really want to thank you for, I mean, I've done what I can, but not like you. So thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Bruce. I can't wait for this to come to an end.
Fair enough.
Well, I second Bruce's commendation. Thank you, Alex. It's everything is very thoughtful and professional. Thank you.
I'm going to take just a second to read a text on somebody working on our truck.
I'm watching a really interesting tableau out the window there. We're 5 people, I think all women, walking up the street, but all the way across the street, as though they're blocking the street. I don't think it's intentional. I think they just see it as a walker-friendly spot, but it was like, argh.
I'm a fan of doing that, so it slows cars down past pedestrians.
That was not good news. Sorry, hold on. Okay. Aaron, can you bring up that document, please?
Can you guys not see it right now?
Yeah, it just needs to be 1 page at a time, but other than that.
I see Aaron Chalk has started screen sharing. Double click to enter full screen mode. Oh. I don't see anything. I can probably bring it up if I have. I don't, now I just see everybody.
Let me just try again. Did that work?
Yes.
Really?
Okay. As we go down through this, what I'd like to do is save comments. You guys are gonna obviously have to have time to read this and comment on it. So rather than wordsmith, there we go. Rather than wordsmith, I'd like to just get a feel for the overall document. There's a hole in it, which I'll explain, but that's why it's draft. Okay, so introductory paragraph simply says what the state of affairs are, that on December 3, can you blow that up, Aaron, so we can read it better? There you go. You'll recall that on December 3, the commission approved all the revised rules and regulations that we presented to them, except item 23, which had to do with hunting. And there was some discussion, no agreement on what to do with 23, except refer it back to the subcommittee for further consideration. And then this document says that that process has progressed to the point where the subcommittee is ready to report back. And that's what this document tries to do. So then there's sort of a explanation of our position, which is to not take one. So by presenting this document, the subcommittee does not advocate for or against hunting. Instead, the commission is requested to make time to agree on language to complete and update item 23 of the rules and regulations. Since perhaps the late 1980s, the committee has not addressed whether it's in the public interest. No, I don't need that. It's not in the public interest to continue, whether or not it's in the public interest to continue hunting of all kinds on Amherst conservation land. And this matter is one of the last to be decided before the Amherst conservation land use rules can be completed timely and we disappear. So, any, am I on track so far? I need to go down the purpose.
Good.
Can you bring the document up a little bit, Aaron? Okay, purpose. So our purpose is pretty simple. Suggest several alternative courses of action for the commission. Present pros and cons of each alternative and provide relevant background information and provide contextual information about what can be hunted when and with what implements according to Mass Wildlife. So you've seen that graph that I sent out with all the seasons on it. So that's that. I'll just tell you, I tried to fit that into this document, and I don't have the wherewithal to do that. Okay, so alternative one, maintain the status quo, allow all forms of hunting. And I say all forms of hunting because there's a whole lot more out there than deer. And so this is not a deer document. This is a hunting document. So the status quo, allow all forms of hunting and adopt the former language of item 23. It's sort of a no action alternative. This number two, maintain the status quo, allow all forms of hunting and adopt language recommending that people and their pets wear visible colors to improve public safety when recreating on conservation land. So this is essentially number one, but adding the language which I gave you quite a long time ago about people wearing honor orange and that kind of stuff. Number three, continue to allow hunting of just deer, turkey, pheasant, and rabbits, and prohibit hunting of all other species on conservation land. This is a compromise between the status quo and prohibiting all hunting. And there are 14 species, not including migratory birds that have hunting seasons. I think it's 14. Anyways, that number comes to mind. There's a lot. And we don't hear about them, but the table that I provided to you also lists all the implements. So Mass Wildlife determines what you can use to hunt chipmunks, skunks, porcupines, raccoons, certain birds, and they include rifles, shotguns, bows and arrows, and dogs, and a bunch of other things. Then number 4 is prohibit all hunting on conservation land. Number 5 is some combination of the above. And I was hoping for 3 alternatives, but I think this is a manageable number. In purpose, I said that we'd provide the pros and cons, and I frankly haven't had the time to write that up for each one of them. We can perhaps talk about it, but I'd rather continue to go down the document and show you the background information. Yes, Bruce.
I'll come back to it at the end.
Okay. Can you go? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I went back to Peter Westover's data that he gave me some time ago, which is current as of 2004, because by 2004, we had amassed 2,500 acres of watershed land, almost 2,000 acres of conservation land, and had acquired or constructed 80 miles of trails. So a lot of work got done before, from 1963, when the first parcel was purchased from Steve Puffer, to 24. And in table 3, what I did is I went into Pete's data, and if you can bring up 23, it dribbles onto the next page. But what I did was I sorted, no, it's in 2 columns, but go back up. Yeah, it's in 2 columns. Can I see the title? Okay. Yeah, and let's have the title at the top in the table. Okay. So what's happening here is it is all the parcels that were purchased by 2004, sorted by size, and I yellow highlighted all the parcels where hunting is not allowed. The land that's not highlighted, hunting is allowed. So what's clear here is that the size of the parcel is not the deciding factor on whether or not hunting can be allowed, because, for example, Brickyard, Mill River are larger than Podick, but no hunting's allowed. Wentworth Farm is bigger than Eastman Brook and Atkins Farms, Flat, but where hunting is allowed, but Wentworth Farm, no hunting. So there is no record on the website of what the criteria has been for deciding whether hunting can be allowed on a piece of land. And the only land that was added after 2004 that I can determine that involved hunting was Catherine, wait a minute, the sanctuary over there.
Cole, Catherine Cole, Podick.
Catherine Cole was added, Catherine Cole Sanctuary, it was called, and hunting was allowed there. So I think I made note of that. Yeah. Since 2004, Catherine Cole. So this is kind of an interesting look. There is a lot of property that's come online for various reasons. No hunting was allowed. I think some of them are obvious. Some of them are not. And I searched the web. I could not find reasons for hunting being allowed. Any questions at this point, Michelle?
Yeah, Dave popped in just in time because Dave, we're looking at a great list that Alex put together that sorts all of the conservation areas by size, those which were acquired since 2004, those that are highlighted, hunting is not permitted, and those that are not highlighted, hunting is permitted. And Alex has noted through this analysis that it's not necessarily by size. So there's no clear explanation available as to what the process is for determining whether hunting is permitted or not permitted, which is really interesting, Alex. Thank you. And I was gonna, I thought I had heard Dave said something about the building buffers, the Massachusetts state setbacks or buffers, the 500-foot were kind of coincided with how whether or not a parcel had hunting permitted. And I was just curious if that is the explanation, or is it still seem to be some more arbitrary or subjective decision making?
You asking me?
Asking everyone, I guess.
I just want to clarify one thing Michelle said. She said after 2004, these are ones acquired prior to 2004. So
Okay,
this
I got
doesn't
it.
include the ones acquired after 2004. And
As
Yeah, but
of, got it.
Pete Westover's data is pretty easy to work with, and I had it, and I haven't found any information that's as easy to deal with as his, and for our purposes, it works just fine. The objective is not to list every single conservation parcel. So anyways,
Well, Michelle put out a question, right? I was trying to just see if we could answer that in some way. I think the easiest answer, and this may not be satisfactory, Michelle, is, you know, collectively, I nor previous commissions have really touched the hunting regulations in 20 years. And I think what stood during Pete's time was these areas where it was clearly allowed, like Lawrence Swamp, Houston Gage, Hoyok Range, Eastman Brook, Atkins Flats, Simmons Farm. And I think in large part they were based on, again, I don't know how much data driven, this is before GIS, most of those. So, but I think it was based, as you said, on setbacks, on safe setbacks. There were a number of very high level heated meetings on hunting many, many years ago. And I think the result of that was to focus hunting in these areas where there was, at the time, reasonable setbacks. Now, there's been a lot of building, as Alex has pointed out. There's been a lot of building and new houses put in adjacent to some of these areas
so
since then.
since Dave's here, are we done with that, Michelle?
can I just add something, which is sometimes,
I really want to move along. Go ahead, but I want to get through this.
well, sometimes acquisition will have certain requirements. I know certain acquisitions I've worked on in the past, applicants who donated their land said, if I donate this land, I don't want hunting to be on it. So there may have been some requirement in the acquisition that either limited or allowed hunting. Like I'm not going to donate it unless hunting's allowed or not allowed
Yeah.
or whatever.
So in talking with Pete, and I think I've talked to Dave, it's my understanding there is nothing on any deed requiring or prohibiting hunting. Period. So while there may have been things said, there's nothing attached to a deed that requires or prohibits.
Without an exhaustive search, I think that is generally true, Alex. I think
Yeah.
I in my time here, I have not acquired any property with a restriction or with a implicit positive, yes, there must be hunting here. Other
So
towns
Aaron,
for sure. So
if we
yeah.
could go to the top of the document and just bring Dave up to speed on what we've already covered, I won't spend much time on it. And this is in your email, Dave. So the first couple of paragraphs, yeah, that's, I'd rather see one page if I could. Yeah. The first couple of paragraphs just kind of introduces what's happening. The fact that on December 3, the commission approved all the rules and regulations presented to it, except item 23, which was hunting. And they gave it back to us, and now we say we're ready to report back to them. The second paragraph says we don't take any position on hunting here, pro or con, but rather ask the commission to make time to decide what language is suitable to complete item 23. I'm paraphrasing. And then,
Yep, I keep, yep, go ahead.
and then the purpose is pretty simple. Suggest several alternatives for the commission, present pros and cons. That part's not done yet. C, provide relevant background, and then provide contextual information on what can be hunted when and with what implements. And that sort of goes to the graph that I've showed you.
Mhm.
So if you can up the page, we'll run through the alternatives with Dave real quickly.
Uh,
The first,
Yeah, I can, I don't want to slow you down, Alex. I was late. I had another meeting, but
okay,
keep going. I'll read this on my computer. I don't want to slow the group down.
well, let me just quick go through it because the first one is do nothing. It's
Mhm.
it's the no action alternative essentially. The second one is a little different, except that it adopts language that improves public safety, hopefully, but it
Mhm.
still maintains hunting. And
Mhm.
then the third is the alternative that we've talked about in the last meeting about allowing just deer hunting, turkey, pheasant, rabbit, and prohibiting the other 14.
Mhm.
And then the other one, the fourth is prohibit hunting, and then 5 is combinations. So I didn't want to, okay, so now we can kind of, I will just go back up so we can see background. And this talks about Pete's data. No, background. Yep. This is kind of where you came in and introduces that we first started buying conservation land in 1963. That was Steve Puffer. And then by 2004, 40 years later, we had a lot of land. And then we have this table, which is where you came in. So if we can go to the next heading, that would be great.
Do you want me to go past this table to the next page?
Yeah. Is this the top of the next page?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Alex,
so,
the one thing I will say, and again, we don't have to get stuck on it here, is I do find it a little odd that time stopped in 2004,
yeah,
because we've acquired hundreds of acres of land since then. So,
yeah. But for our purposes, Dave, number one, I didn't have that data. I did have
Mhm.
Pete's data. It's
Yeah.
nothing personal. But the objective is not to list every single parcel. It's,
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's a little odd to kind of pull out that data 2004. All of the other acquisitions are readily available in the open space and recreation plan, but
well,
we, you know,
I had a nice little file that I could yank stuff out of without doing a lot of typing. So, um, then the next we go through what can be hunted, and I don't list them all here, but just say that there are 23 species of mammals and birds which are huntable in central Massachusetts, including Amherst, plus migratory birds. And I say, see table 1. What I was trying to do last night is fit in that part of the table that you've seen, but I cannot get it to fit on the. Never mind. I I cut it in half and tried to get it in here, and I've got to figure out how to do that. But so, and then when are the hunting seasons? That's still that table. And you've all seen that table. And then the hunting implements, that's also in the table. So the hunting implements vary widely. Pistols, rifles, shotguns, bows and arrows, dogs, so on. So then we go to an explanation of administration of conservation land. And if you'd up the page, this is relevant background to the commission making a decision. I think it anticipates questions. So the department actively manages conservation land in a bunch of ways, maintaining trails, bridges, brush hogging, monitoring water quality, unswimmable waters for public safety, trash pickup, partnering with others, and other management actions. However, it does not monitor public use of trail systems that ranges all over conservation areas. It does not monitor hunter use of conservation lands where hunting is allowed. It does not make publicly available maps of each conservation area where hunting is allowed, showing the 500-foot buffer that from every dwelling or other building in use, which state law forbids the discharge of an arrow or firearm. And I've asked Dave for that, and so far we don't have it. We have it only for Simmons. And then the department does not provide guidance to people and their pets to wear blaze orange to increase visibility during hunting seasons. We've talked about that. And it has not assessed each conservation area where hunting is allowed to determine if all types of hunting should still be a suitable use. Michelle brought that up. So the department, as far as I'm concerned, is unaware where conflicts of use between all types of hunting and passive recreation may be occurring, and issues of public safety may exist. Consequently, the department is ill-informed to anticipate or take steps to avert either. And it's just the plain truth. It's not a criticism. Next. Do we have any questions, discussion? Okay, next. The reason, and this is the last page, but the reason I put in what the department does and doesn't do is because I think it might play a role in what the commission wants to say finally. And it may choose to ask the department to do some of those things. So I stuck this thing in here about growth of Amherst. And this is census information. The census occurs once a decade. And it shows that Amherst has grown exponentially, probably with UMass, particularly during the 60s and 70s. And that population includes residents and students. So I surmise that we can speculate that the use of conservation land and trails has increased at perhaps the same slope over the same period. And I don't go on to talk about potential conflicts between hunting and use. I thought about it. I haven't written it. I focused on the other areas, but that's what I was getting at, is as our conservation land becomes more heavily used and hunting is still occurring for squirrels and chipmunks, it's all available. Not just, this is not about deer. It's about the fact that hunting is allowed for almost every species under the sun. Yeah, Michelle. You're on mute.
As we look at this graph without new census data, I'm just reading that a draft housing plan is suggesting that Amherst produced 265 to 715 new housing units. So I think we can at least expect trends to continue.
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce.
So I had 3 or 4 comments as we went through. How do you want to do that?
Go for it.
Okay, working backwards from page 4. So I think we should drop, if we're going to keep the personal safety recommendation thing that Alex sent out, he asked for where it should go in the rules and regulations, and I said between numbers 5 and 6 was my answer. If we're going to keep that, then we should drop bullet 4 on this page, because in fact we are going to provide guidance about wearing blaze orange.
Well, I don't think the subcommittee is gonna make that happen. I think that would be before the commission to make that happen.
Okay, well, just they're at odds if they both happen. So,
And just before you move on, Bruce, the statement is that the department now does not, and it does not do that.
okay. So, well, to the extent this is a memo to them, then that's probably okay.
Yeah, this section sets us up to ask the department to do that.
Okay, fine.
Michelle?
My other one.
I'll let Bruce go.
Oh, wait a minute, Bruce is not done, excuse me.
Well, I'll just lay them out there. So, my preference would be to not include alternative 4. Because I think that we all acknowledge that that's not going to happen, so there's no point in having it as an alternative. I didn't understand what the combinations might be, but maybe there are some. So I think it's 1, 2, and 3 personally. And the other is, Alex, I don't think you should spend your time writing the pros and cons of each alternative. They're sort of self-evident. And if people were listening to all the debates and the visitors and all that stuff, they know what they are. I don't think you should have to take your time to do that. That's what I think. End of comment.
Thank you. You want me to respond now or later?
Let's see what Michelle has, and then we'll discuss.
Okay, Michelle.
Thanks. Can we go to, sorry, Aaron, do you mind scrolling us up to the options to be presented to the full commission? So I guess whatever we do and whatever comes of this, I just want to make sure that we are following a process that has some logic associated with it. And thank you, Alex, for putting it so clearly here. So I think kind of to Bruce's point about not having pros and cons, I don't know that pros and cons are necessarily what is needed, but I think some background about the process would be helpful. So specifically, I think there's a preamble that the commission did not accept our first proposal, and I just want it very clearly stated that that proposal, what it did was integrate buffers around public trails, and it's not really mentioned here anywhere that that was the process that we were taking. And I want it to be, and I want it to be on the record that we put that forth and it wasn't voted on or it wasn't proposed. We had a specific distance that may not have been an appropriate distance, but I do want to be clear that we have considered putting these buffers around public trails as other land conservation land management agencies have done, and that the commission had an opportunity to discuss and vote on that, and that they chose or didn't choose not to. So I guess I'm just thinking that some background around that first conversation would be helpful. It doesn't need to be pros and cons, but to be clear, all of the considerations that we put out there, and then, you know, hold people accountable to what we ultimately decide.
Dave? Your hand's still up, Michelle. You done?
Yep.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I just had a quick question for you, Alex, relative to number 3 in the alternatives. And I apologize if it's covered somewhere else, but I know at one of our last meetings, you talked about option 3, alternative 3, I believe in relation to a certain number of conservation areas. So I guess my question is number 3 that alternative saying continue to allow hunting for the following 4 or 5 species at all conservation areas? Or is there an alternative, which is to say, allow those at 7 that we determined by GIS study with all the relative setbacks, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. It's not in this document. And
Because
I think
I personally really like that alternative or that idea that you put forth, I believe, a meeting or two ago.
the fact that I see your hand, Michelle, and I'll get there in a second, but the fact that Michelle brought up quite a long time ago that we have never reassessed whether or not hunting is suitable in the conservation areas where it's now allowed. And, maybe there's others where it is more suitable or some should drop out. That analysis has never been done, which is kind of why I put in what the department's not doing. It has not done that. And it didn't become part of an alternative. I thought it might, I don't know, it just getting that far into the weeds, just didn't have time for that. I think it's great. But and as far as item 4, I think it needs to be there. Just like the no action alternative. You may say that's obvious, but if we were to doing an EIS or an EA, we would state all of the reasonable alternatives. And it's up to the commission to reject them as they see fit. And we know that they would reject 4, probably. I don't know, maybe not. But I feel pretty strongly that it should be there. But I do say up above that we're not advocating for any one of these alternatives. We're just saying that they're available. I don't know who had their hand up first, Michelle or Bruce.
Michelle?
Just quickly, I agree that I think we should keep 4. It's an alternative. It just is something that we should have. I also liked 3, and you did a lot of work to show what that would look like and the rationale. And if you want help getting the graphic in there, I can help you do that offline. And again, I think
I'll say right now, I desperately need some
okay, just
help.
send me the materials and tell me where you want it and I'll put it in. I think this is another one where like just a little bit of text, because this is going to be a public document, I assume, and go in our folder, would be helpful to give the rationale, just like a sentence of what the rationale is behind it, because somebody reviewing this material would really have no way to assess any of the long conversations that we've had about what the purpose is of each of these. So I'm just advocating for like a sentence that gives the background thus far on each of them.
Well, okay. I'll just say that, in my working life, I dealt a lot with NEPA documents on the federal level. Purpose, need, alternatives considered, and there's always a discussion about each alternative. So it was my intention to have some discussion like Michelle is suggesting for each one of these. I just haven't written it. Dave or Bruce? I think Bruce.
Okay, so I withdraw my comment about 4. I agree with you. I think the pros and cons and description of each one should be as brief as possible and still get the point across. I remain concerned about the time we don't need to spend. But on page 5, I'm going to ask Dave whether he thinks the town lawyers will have any concerns about the statement that the department's unaware, it's ill-informed. I mean, I get what Alex is trying to do, but I worry that in a public document, this may come across in the wrong way. Dave's on mute. My question.
Sorry, page 5. I'm looking at the document. Is there a page?
It's above the growth of Amherst. There's 2 sentences.
Oh, sorry. That's page 4 on
There, right there. No.
Yeah,
Go back up, Aaron. Sorry, it's on the bottom of page 4, I guess now. On this version, there we go. The department is unaware, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to take issue with some of these, but they're pretty broad and pretty, you know, we our land managers are out there all the time. They, we don't have an active hunting monitoring system, but we de-escalate situations on our trails and on our conservation land between abutters all the time. So these are pretty strong statements. Um, you know,
Yeah,
uh, you know,
we've talked before, you don't have
yeah.
any counters on trails. You don't know which ones are used the most or when.
No, yeah,
And you don't have hunters register with the town, so you know which way
right,
they're hunting.
right. I actually take more exception with the first bullet under administration. I think that one is kind of over the top. The department does not monitor public use of the trail system that ranges over every conservation land area.
You
I,
know,
I would I would argue we do. We are out there all the time. We are dealing with situations where there's illegal dumping, where there's illegal camping or homeless encampments. We're out there all the time. So do we have counters? No, we don't have counters. How many places really do where you go to a conservation area and they count how many people use it? So of all those bullets, I would love to take that one off. I agree with 1, 2, 3, 4, the next 4. We don't do a lot of monitoring of hunting or hunters. I don't
well,
think we ever will.
maybe I can reword bullet number 1, but
Yeah, it seems
I
kind
don't
of
think
overly strong.
what Brad does is good, but it doesn't get at the point I was trying to make, which is identifying areas where public safety might be a concern.
It's just to earlier points about this becoming a public document. The department does not monitor public use of the trail system. That it, you know, that's a pretty strong statement. Um,
Maybe I could say count.
sure, we don't count users. So what we know about, we know Puffer's Pond is more popular than Cider Mill Pond.
Yeah, so
So anyway,
you know, um, trying in drafting, just trying to use similar language and I can change. I'll put in count. Does not count users.
mhm, that's more accurate, I think.
That's fine. What I was trying to do in these things, as I said, Dave, is give grist to the commission to say, maybe it would be a good idea to reassess the areas that where we say we allow hunting to see if it's still suitable. The commission, for example, has never seen the 500-foot overlay on Simmons Conservation Area, which I
Mhm,
think is 25 acres or was.
mhm, mhm.
And that law, by the way, prohibits the discharge of a firearm or an arrow within the buffer, but it does not prohibit firing into the buffer. And when the buffer has come up, the response that we got from some commissioners was, well, we can all tell what 500 feet is from a residence. I don't think that's true.
I agree. I couldn't do it.
Alex, are you saying that if you are on a conservation land at, let's say Simmons, and you're outside the buffer, you can fire into the buffer, like towards the building?
That's the way I read the law.
Hmm,
That wouldn't be good hunter safety,
right.
but I can see somebody shooting a deer inside the buffer and going in there and dragging it out. Anyways,
Well, that makes it more complicated for sure.
yeah, and that law is in the appendices. Okay, so I'll soften that language. I don't want to put the department or the town in, I don't want to give it exposure that would cause it problems. We're trying to address problems, not create them. So I was trying to, in writing this document, I was trying to figure out what do I do with all the things that I've written. They're sort of, I needed something that pulled it together in a succinct way and yet provided enough background that maybe get the conversation going. And and not provide so much that people won't read it. And I'd also, just from a personal standpoint, I don't really care which way the decision goes. I think our job, our responsibility is to put the issue out there, have the commission decide, then it's on their back. And, and not fight the fight. I don't want this to play out in the papers and divide people on the commission. I'd rather find a way to move forward, advancing public safety, and try and keep the conversation general and not specific to one or two animals. And I'll also say that in the alternative about allowing hunting of those particular species, when I talked with Fish and Wildlife down in Belchertown District Office, those are essentially the species they would like to have around and hunted to provide a starting place, like turkeys and rabbits and pheasants, provide a starting point for future hunters. They have their hunting license sales are going down generally. Their budget depends on license sales. I also understand the impact of deer on forest regrowth. So I don't want the conversation to go around those kinds of things. It might, but I didn't write about it here. Dave?
Alex, I was just quickly circling back to my question about, and again, I like, generally the alternatives and that alternative where we really focused on those 4 or 5 species that you've identified and Mass Wildlife kind of supports, to your point you just made. I know that we have talked about some additional mapping, and it's really just a question of Aaron's time and my time focusing on that. But I guess my question is to Aaron. Aaron, how difficult would it be? And Alex, maybe you can clarify the ask. Are you asking for the 500-foot setback kind of assessment of every conservation area in Amherst?
No,
Or
just the ones where hunting is allowed.
just the ones, so there's like 6 or 7 where it's allowed. Aaron, how
Is it?
difficult would that be for you to produce? Because I do think it would be informative for this group and for the whole commission.
Yeah, I mean, I think that analysis has already been done. I did the analysis for for every road and every structure in the town of Amherst.
And
Yeah,
so would it be as simple as putting the polygons, calling out the polygons for those conservation areas and basically having them pop on a map, of each area, say Simmons Farm, Atkins Flats, go to Catherine Cole, and it's a fairly short list of under 10 conservation areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could do an individual map for each one, or
That would be fantastic.
an individual map for each one, Aaron, and looking like the one that you did for Simmons, not an opaque buffer, but one that's a grid so you can see through it.
so I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. You're talking about from the road, a 500
No,
foot
no.
buffer?
No, what we're doing is we're implementing the public safety law. by putting that buffer on. So the buffer is from residences and structures in use.
So are we doing it from the state defined buffers?
Yeah,
Or that, because we were using an arbitrary 500 foot from roads previously that,
I think
Yeah.
Alex is just saying to use the building. We're just talking about purely the state existing regulations,
yeah,
no proposed
yeah,
regulations. So the roads
yeah.
would get something right, and then the
Yeah,
building.
I think it's 150 feet from a road and what is it, 500
Okay,
feet from a residence?
We can add those if you want, but what I would like to see is, well, let me back up. When you go on the Amherst website and you say, where can I hunt? And it lists all 8 areas, and then just to the right, it says map. And if you click on every one of those maps, you don't see any buffers. However, on the web, there is a map for Simmons that shows the public safety buffer,
Right.
and I have shown that to you.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that has a nice grid, um, parallel lines, so you can see down through
Yeah.
the grid, and that buffer is from the houses right on the buffer of Simmons.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that would be, I mean, it will take a little bit of time, but I don't think it's like a, unreasonable thing to produce in an afternoon.
Yeah, so I have a copy of that and I can send it to everybody so we know what we're talking about. The buffer that we put on the trails was opaque.
Can I just sneak in one more question? I know Bruce's hand up. Playing the devil's advocate there, though, let's, and again, I don't want to get too locked on what's on the website, but those are the areas that historically we have allowed hunting. But are there any newly acquired areas that have the acreage that we might want to assess as well? Because I think somebody, a devil's advocate in this discussion, could say, oh, well, there's only 8. What about Hickory Ridge or something like that? Aaron, does that, am
Huh.
I overthinking this?
Well, I think Hickory Ridge is a big question mark in terms
Yeah.
of
Yeah, maybe
ownership.
I shouldn't have
So,
used that one, but I'm trying to think of
Well, let's just take Hickory Ridge and say it's conservation land, as if all you're doing is using it as an example. Those
well,
those
well, that
those
one, I think that's not. I'm thinking of how about the Cushman Brook properties that we acquired a few years ago, Aaron? Maybe they might be better along Pariseau Alley because
I
those,
don't know what Pariseau
yeah,
Alley is, but I know the Cushman Brook parcels.
So I would request that you figure this out among the staff members.
fine. We can do that. Yep.
But I agree, add the new ones in that might be part of the conversation going forward anyway.
Yeah.
Bruce.
Okay.
So my understanding, correct me if I've got this wrong, because I missed a meeting. This is our last meeting. We have a half an hour left. And I want to know, is there anything else we absolutely have to do before this subcommittee comes to an end? Or are we going to try have one more meeting that is not currently scheduled between now and the 31st, which is the end of the month?
We need to decide what needs to happen to this document to get it to the commission. We're running out of time in this meeting. I'll do whatever the group wants, but we have beavers and we have forest plan yet to do. And I prioritize this just because it's more important. I know some changes have been asked for in this document. I'm going to do that. That needs to come back to you folks for your okay before it goes to the commission. And
I propose Alex make the change we talked about and send it along without sending it back to us.
A second. But I'd like to discuss at the end just exactly what they were, so we're clear.
Yeah, I don't favor that because then I'm working by myself.
Okay, well, I'll review it as quickly as possible once you send it then.
Yeah. So, um, we need to decide where we go from here on this document. We kind of just talked about that, whether or not we need a couple more meetings. I think we could use a month. I've had 3 items on the agenda for quite a while, and we were lucky to get through one. And when this goes to the commission, we don't have to deal with it anymore. So that'll free up a lot of time. Bruce?
No, I'm still in favor of trying to meet for an hour and a half or 2 hours between now and the 31st and try to get these done.
Okay,
And I know it, I assume you have drafts of the beavers and the forest. Maybe just truncate them as much as possible and let's meet.
for a guy who wrote the agricultural policy, which is the longest document we have, I love it when you talk about shorter is better.
Well, okay, that's my suggestion. I'm open to however the 3 of us want to do it, but we need to be done with this. Everyone agrees with that. That's my suggestion.
I'm willing to meet, just need time to get things done. And I have a lot of pressure on some other things, just like everybody else.
Okay, well, I just see the other 3 commissioners going, this is the 4th time you 3 have asked us for more time. And I don't want a big discussion at the Conservation Commission meeting. I just want to say we're done. So, and I believe that Alex and Michelle want to say that too. So that's my suggestion.
Well, my term is coming up this spring, I think, and I've been doing double duty for quite a long time.
Right, I'm trying to help that.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay, so I'm not clear on what consensus is. Michelle?
I mean, both of you have mentioned an interim meeting to try and push this through so we're done at the end of the month, and I'd be in favor of that.
So who's going to organize it?
I will.
Okay, good. Tuesdays are tough.
I'm thinking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 26, 7, 8
Of next week?
of next week.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Dave and Aaron, are there any of those days you could not do it?
Well, we have a Concom meeting on the 26th.
Okay.
The 27th, I have,
All right, we're not gonna, let's not do this here. I'll do it by email, but let's try to solve it.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's tight, but
We'll figure it out.
it's 4 minutes past 1. Michelle's going to turn into a pumpkin.
Is there, I mean, given that we're on our last legs here, is there can we accomplish something within the next half hour that I should stick around for? Where are we at?
I'm burned out.
Okay, so you want to go too?
I went to bed this morning at about
But,
5:20.
okay, I'm gonna send out an email, scheduling polling email. It won't be a doodle poll. Maybe it will, but anyway, I'll figure this out. I'll send it out no later than tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks you.
And Alex, feel free to send me the document with the graphic once you're ready to have it inserted, and I can help with that.
Okay. You already have the graphic.
Yeah, but I'd probably do it once you're done with editing the document.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So
All right.
I didn't take notes, but I think I remember what I'm supposed to do. Change a couple of words for Dave, add some background on
Each of the alternatives.
each of the alternatives, and then Michelle wants a paragraph on the analysis that we did previously that was the basis for what we sent the commission.
I mean, a short paragraph, like 3 sentences, just to explain, the work that we did, the outcome.
Yeah, 4 or 5 lines, maybe
Yeah.
6.
Okay.
Revising alternative 3 to include specific conservation lands as defined by the staff.
I missed that. By the way, you notice when I talk about hunting, I always say all types, because there are those among us who just think about deer and turkey and things like that, but the rules,
Yep.
that graph spells out the rules. Making that graph that I sent you was about 8 hours of work. And it's to go through the fish and game rules, or it's not all on one page. So it is accurate, and I've forgotten how many species there are, but
Many.
if it runs or flies, you can kill it.
All right. I'm running out of time.
So am I. So I appreciate your time and your enthusiasm. Do you think we're on the right track for eventually bringing this to the commission for them to decide?
I
Indeed.
do.
Yeah, you'll be chair.
Close.
Michelle. You may want to be traveling when that comes up.
Yeah, keep my eye on the agenda.
Yeah, so when whoever makes up the agenda for this item, you're gonna need, when we had our last speaker, it was my understanding that he had 20 minutes, half an hour, and he was over an hour.
That's the nature of Conservation Commission comment, though. It tends to go much longer.
Yeah, well, I guess, Alex, I would request that if possible, this be a single item, subcommittee item for us to discuss on a particular day if possible.
I don't understand. Just say it again, please.
Well, just I think we're going to be bringing a lot to the commission. So if we're going to be talking about this document that it's not paired with like beavers or forestry or something else that might generate a lot of conversation. So that I guess that we just reserve time for this in anticipation of more discussion than other topics.
Yeah, so the usual is to, have us say okay to a document, then it goes to the commission, they have time to consider it, write comments, and then it comes to a vote. That's been our process. And the other thing I got to do for Aaron is take everything that's been approved and put it back into the policy document and provide that. So that's also on the list. But do you want to vary from our previous process of giving them?
No, I guess to the extent possible that if we're giving us several documents that we pair this with maybe ones that will take less discussion time.
Yeah, I would prefer one at a time.
Okay, if we have time, then that's even better.
Well, yes, I agree. Yep. Okay. So,
I'm departing.
bye-bye. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I
second.
agree.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Aaron.
Bye, everyone.
And Aaron, how much of our subcommittee folder is available to the public?
Well, nothing is available to the public on the website yet. I'd like to, when we're ready to go to public hearing, I'd like to set up a website with each draft section for public to have opportunity to review, because there'll be a legal ad in the paper and it will refer them to that page.
Yeah, that's all. That's different. We're having deliberation within the committee, and I don't know how much is somebody can watch the video all they want.
Right.
But I don't think the document that people were looking at is available to the press, for example.
Right. That's correct.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Aaron.
All right. Have a good
You're
one.
on mute. Bye-bye.